Kank. Ah, I did it again. Damn it.
Future Kank.
Sorry, I got my Kanks mixed up. Hey, you guys, welcome back to It's Pencil to Pencil time. It's not Howdy Doody time. It's Pencil to Pencil time. It must be Wednesday. It must be your 3 favorite expert cartoonists on your video scope. Well, hello. Welcome back to the show. My name is JAMAR NICHOLAS. I'm your first host. I am a member of the National Cartoonist Society and also hold a board seat. Look at that. And I'm also the chapter chair. Not only am I a client. No, I'll stop there. I also am a graphic novelist. I have a series at Scholastic underneath the graphics imprint. Leon the Extraordinary is the name. Leon, Worst Friends Forever is in stores now. It's the new volume. You got to go cop it. Why don't you? I would be remiss if I did not introduce my co-host, co-conspirator, cohort, and co-conquistador. You know him as the internet man who walks the side of the roads of the internet superhighway.
He just walks. Walks the side of the road.
Just like a walk cycle.
Side road walker, you.
Side road walker. You would not like to get him angry in these internet streets. He is also my webcomic best bud. He is known as Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
Happy New Year, guys. It's so good to see you. I missed us.
I missed us. I missed this.
My name is Steve Conley. I write and draw the webcomic The Middle Age, which has been going on. This will be year 9. We're about to the 9th anniversary.
9 years.
I know. You'd think I would have done more episodes, but episode 320 is if you told me I was going to do 320 pages of a comic ever, I would have said no, not possible. Can't be done. But episode 320 was just posted last week. 321 is on the drawing board now. You can read it at middleagecomic.com. It's on Webtoons and Tapas and Go Comics. We're approaching 22,000 subscribers over on Webtoons. And I make TTRPG stuff. My latest book, Nibblemancy, is waiting to see it arrive from the printers. Might be my favorite book yet. It's very silly. And I'd be remiss, I think, if I didn't introduce the Tower of Power, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, the cartoonist who walks, Mr. Mike Manley.
Wait a minute. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Manley. I am this year will be number 41. Ooh. 41. We're doing comic books, sitting in the captain's chair, drawing comic books.
Wow.
For everyone's enjoyment.
Wow.
Currently do Judge Parker and the Ghost Who Walks, the Phantom, which he's getting a little long in the tooth. Yet, you'd never know what to look at him.
He looks like a young 90, right?
That's right. No gray on that Cipitone.
No. I see what you did there.
Have we ever asked about our chairs? The drawing chair, Mike? Well, you said captain's chair. Is that a chair that you use to? Is that like your favorite chair? Like, have you said this is my brand? This is the one I'll be drawing into they retire?
Well, this is a gaming chair that I got at Staples. Because I had the other chair, this one here, but my cats took care of that chair. I think that chair's like 7 years old, but it just, it's actually, it's hard to find a good chair. The thing I always tell people is that the thing that's the most expensive in your studio should be your chair, because that's the thing you're going to sit on for the most of your life. Most of your waking life
right.
is going to be set, right? If I'm up 7 o'clock, maybe I take a nap, maybe I don't, maybe I go, 10, 12 hours a day. You guys know, you're sitting in that chair. If you're sitting in a chair that's like killing your back or hurting your butt or, hurting your circulation,
you're sacroiliac.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard to find a good chair. It really is. It's like you can go and you can spend $300 on a chair and you think, well, that's a lot of money. But if it's one of those, like these things are like pleather or whatever that is.
Yeah.
They don't last.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, that stuff will start peeling and
A $300 chair is $30 a year for how long you're going to use it and keep it, and it's going to take care of you. I am a big fan of making sure you got one that's comfortable. I'm keeping this one alive. It's like covered with like that leatherette tape. Every time a cat leather scratch is torn through it, I'm like, no, I'm going to hold this thing together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if you can do it, like, you know, I don't understand how, and I know it's easy to sit in like a dining room chair and try to draw pages. Right. And at some point you're going to be like, you know, like those infomercials where like they put the X over somebody's. Oh,
right. Well, and the thing is that, you know, I'm not 20 anymore, and you can do a lot of road wear on your back over the years. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when you're young, you go like, but you're still soft and you have collagen, you know. Then as you get a little bit older, your collagen, you know, kind of like when you bend it, like it pops out, you know, it doesn't come back. You know,
it's kind of like butter in the corn feeder.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And butter in the corn. And the older, like Al had a really good, he had like this, you don't see him. They don't make them like that anymore. But he had like one of those almost like, it was old wooden banker chair, all solid like oak or whatever it was. And it had padding. And then he had I think he'd had it redone.
Like reupholstered, right?
Reupholstered, and they had redone the cushion. But it was very comfortable, you know, and you could kind of, you know, you could sit back. Now, and it also depends, I think, how you sit. Like some guys have the drafting table where it's like you see John Romita and a couple other people I know, they have a drafting table. It's probably as long as my table, except it's up.
Right.
It's
very vertical, right? Yeah.
Right. And so they sit with their basically your butt out. Right. So you sit with your butt behind you, not you like this, right? You sit like that, which supposedly is like the perfect posture, and they work this way. I think Hawthorne does too.
Yeah, Hawthorne works standing up.
Right.
Wow.
With a totally vertical. And actually, it's funny you mentioned it because I think Mike Hawthorne's I guess next week.
There you go.
There it is. So he could tell you himself, but I think, you know, part of his story is that coming from like fine arts, like he's used to drawing, like painting at an easel or being at an easel. Why change your posture when you're doing comic book pages? So I think that's a little bit of his mania right there. You know, but that's right. Got to get your ergonomics correct, Paul Pate. And even to that, like, you know, I bought a pretty decent chair from Sam's Club. Like it's already like 4 or 5 years old. And I have just like an old beat up blanket I keep in it or keep on it just so I don't like rip it up. You know what I mean? You know, you flopping in it or shifting your butt around in it or lean it back in it. It's going to crack it after a while. So I try to just.
Your crack is going to crack it?
Let's try to keep some pressure off of it, you know, but it's very true. And as you cartoonists in the chat or enthusiasts and all you guys know, and you put a lot of road miles in a chair. So you should get a good one.
Well, the thing is as an artist, you spend, most people I know spend most of their waking life in your studio. So even when you're not drawing, you're still sitting in your chair. Right, unless you know you're sitting on your couch or on your
iPad thingy, right?
Yeah, I did that for a while years ago when I was working on paper with Judge Parker. I get my lap board and I sit there and draw, but you know my eyes were a little bit better then, and I sort of wanted to see if I could do it. Like, I'll just draw anywhere,
right?
You know, I don't have to sit into my table. I'll sit anywhere and draw, you know.
And it's not necessarily like I think that's really interesting because when people really started leaning into iPads or drawing on tablets, you know, people love that I'm untethered. I can go anywhere, but people still kind of gravitated back to their studio. You know, I think that's interesting.
I also think that the generations of people using these iPads will have way more eye problems earlier than the older generation of people, because staring at these things affects your eyes a lot more than just looking at paper. That blue light, all that stuff coming at your eyes all the time is going to affect your, you're like, your eye is also focusing closer. Usually when you're on an iPad or you're looking at your iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So I know usually in your 40s, your eye starts to lose the focus elasticity of like looking. And I think I said this before. I remember Dick Giordano said that what he would do is he would, every 15 or 20 minutes, I think he told me, he would look away for a little while. Stop getting his eye, because your eye will get stuck. Literally, your eye gets used to focusing at a certain distance, right? And then when you go, you might have to blink a few times, and then your eye, then it will adjust to distance, So all the kind of things you don't think about when you're in your like I said, when you're fresh and pink and you got lots of juice in between your parts.
I don't think I was ever pink, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you were okay. You were a chocolatey pink, but you're a mockletty chocolatey pink. You're like if you mix strawberry quick and chocolate quick together, right?
Ooh, that's creamy. I like it.
–
Paul Pate says, drawing anywhere with your iPad can be a curse. It blurs boundaries. I have to set some rules for myself. You can't separate church and state. Steve, did you want to touch on that a little bit?
No, I love that point. I love that point a lot. I was just an amen to what Paul Pate was saying. I often work at coffee shops or Panera or something like that. I'll just park myself in a corner with my iPad and draw for hours. And I do like getting out. I do like being. I'm an introverted extrovert. I will go out and want to be left alone to draw. But I do like getting outside and just being outside, just because now you're looking at clouds and trees. You're looking at something that's not a digital.
Ew.
I know.
That's
where all the bugs are.
You go outside and touch grass, as the kids say.
Yeah, exactly. I want to not be stuck in a room, and but after
profession.
Also, it's like I'll work here for 3 hours, I'll work there for 3 hours, I'll come back here for 3 hours. It feels like that's the kind of break I need to, just keep working.
Here's that guy again. He never buys anything. He just comes in here and sits.
Panera, it's Panera's fault. They set up a subscription program for their coffee, so I was able to buy an annual prescription. So it's basically medicinal. So an annual subscription, and so I just go in and give them my number, and they just give me.
They give you your shot of your coffee in your arm, and then you can go sit in the.
If I don't drink the coffee, I'm losing money. So.
So wait, is that what they call it, the SIP program or something?
That's what it is. Yeah.
So explain this. You could say like you give them $100 in January, and you could just drink for free. Is that kind of how it works?
Exactly. Originally it was like $8 a month. I think now it's like $12 or $13 a month. And but when they were just about to raise the price per month, I bought the annual, so I was locked into the old price. So I was like, okay, I could drink for a year and be cheapskate.
And do they charge you for pissing up the bathrooms?
Oh, wait a minute! You got a whiz? That's $45 a visit.
Yeah, that's a whole other plan. The Whiz Club.
No, you get a sip card and a piss card. It's the
That's
same.
right. Yeah, when your piss card is soaked, you get another one.
Holy crap, you guys! We're back. We're live. So first off, before we get started, this is going to be a talking episode between your expert co-hosts and you, dear viewer. But I want to give a shout out and a tip of the I don't have my bucket. A tip of the hat to Mike's Rat Bastard shirt he's wearing. We're good buddy.
My old Rat Bastard shirt.
Cliff Galbraith, the Hooja Bros. And I got to give a shout out to the Rat Bastard because that was one of the first indie comics that was in color. The Hooja
He also
Bros
ran a really nice con for a few years.
As we referred to as Cliff's show here in the East Coast.
Right.
East Coast Comic Con. Yeah, rest in peace. East Coast Comic Con was a good show.
Wow.
It was like it's a caucus in this really interesting like business plaza, and there was like a whole ass convention center in the middle of a free parking lot.
Wow.
Right, and then there was a embassy suite in the parking lot, and right, like
Yeah.
you could like jump across the puddle right into the front door. I love that show. And then when we weren't there, me and like Franco and whoever else was at the show would go over to the Walmart across the street and just walk around. It was great.
Is that venue still there?
The thing's still there. Cliff Show's not.
So it could be. Are you saying that 2025 we're going to see Leon Con?
Leon Con, I think it's going to happen. I think
Cosplay only.
I think you called it Leon. And funny you mentioned it. That was the first Leon cosplay was at Cliff's show. When I was there and the little girl came around the corner dressed up like Leon. That happened there.
Wow.
So I gotta like a lot of great things, great memories of that show. Mike, that shirt looks real fresh. Is that an old school Rap Bastard shirt?
That's the original one that I got. Yeah.
Wow.
I love Rap.
I have some. It was a good. I think it was. It's all cotton. So, like, I have some old shirts, and some old shirts. If you try to put it on, it sounds like it's cracking. You know.
It's crusty. Like
I have some old Ren and Stimpy shirts that I can't wear anymore, and a couple of old Warner Brothers Studio Store shirts that I can't wear anymore. I mean, they still fit, but the fabric is like
crunchy.
Yeah. But this is still soft like a baby's flesh.
It's a nice shirt. It's a good shout out to that. All right, you guys, let's get into it. We are back with we ended off last. We're back, right? We're back after break. Happy New Year!
Yeah.
And we kind of ended last year with that's Val.
Search for Spock.
Yeah, the 2020 God with the 2024 wrap up, where we kind of went through kind of the paces of 2024 and maybe what would happen this year. So now, yeah, we got it. Now we're
wrong.
doing this.
All predictions wrong.
And now, without getting too deep into stuff, there's a lot going on, and it feels like the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where people are like, "Oh, I'm so glad this year is over," and then we get to the next year, and it's like pandemonium outside. It is like
you look outside and it's on fire for some people.
Literally,
like literally.
Yeah.
Right. So, kind of the gist of what we're talking about tonight, and really, we want your input, chat, is. How were you going to, what we said when we were trying to cook up this show, survive 2025 creatively? Now, it's and I totally understand the need to want to go and hide. Right. But
hide in 25. That'll be the next episode.
Right. So, but like, realistically, everybody in here who's watching this or has some sort of compunction and want to be a career cartoonist, you got to figure out a way through this. So I thought we could spend some time today just kind of going over some toolkit stuff that we can maybe talk about or even see what the chat is thinking. So while we were talking, I asked the chat if they had any creative resolutions for 2025. So Paul Pate starts up early and says, resolution, balance, get more steps in between arting. So, speaking of the chair thing, and thanks, Paul, that was a really great thing. Are you kind of, are you kind of keeping a work-life balance? And especially if, there's so much doom scrolling. Every time you turn on the TV, there's a talking head telling you that the sky is falling. You got to move away from that somehow. So maybe we could start.
I stopped watching TV after the day after the election. I watched movies. But I stopped watching I watched a few minutes the other day. My brother's in LA. So I watched a few minutes of it, but I found that they just make me, it just makes me mad. It doesn't inform me. I can get plenty of information reading better information. So I sort of found like the doom edging. They just edge you up all the time. And I actually know a lot of other people through my social media feeds and even some of my friends. They just said, you know what, I can be informed, but I don't need to watch some talking head tell me some bullshit. And then now a commercial for Huggies or McDonald's or something like that.
Or Huggies after you eat McDonald's.
Right, exactly. So I stopped watching TV news altogether. I did not stop reading. I did not stop listening. And I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I watched it for the first time because of California fires the other day. First time since November 8th or 9th or whatever the last. That's the first time, and I found that I don't miss it. And now when I watch it for just a couple of minutes, it's like, this is just so fucking ridiculous. I'm not getting anything out of it. I can see the same pictures on my better stuff actually on my Instagram feed. There was some kid riding around on his bicycle through stuff and talking to people. That was way more informative than listening to some, $1 million jack-off sit on his sit there and get his camera. Let me get which angle. Oh, okay, there we go. There's some fire behind me.
Get my good side.
Yeah. Get my hot side. And I know a lot of other people have said that. So maybe that's a little TLC for yourself.
Yeah, unplugging. And I don't think we actually are going as far as, say, a digital detox. Everything's got a phrase behind it. I remember this is maybe 15 years ago, I did what I called at the time an internet vacation, right? And that was just me because I had to finish a project, and I know myself that I was just distracting myself, by like logging in or scrolling or whatever. And I made this declaration on Facebook. This is a long time ago. I was like, "Dear Internet, I am going on internet vacation. I will be back in January. January 1st.
Why?
Well, it wasn't. I didn't get much outreach from that, but it's almost like, you ever see those people in a group on Facebook where they're like, you know what, this isn't the same group I joined. I'm leaving. And somebody always comments underneath this isn't an airport. You don't need to announce your departure.
Yeah, I didn't. Everybody has to do what works for them. In general, I think a lot of artists, you're an artist because you're a sensitive person. Usually, right? You're usually a sensitive person. I know a lot of very sensitive people who are artists. And the way things are right now, they're very upset. And it makes it very hard for them to concentrate and work. But I will say, it was something I was going to mention at the beginning of the show. Now, I've been doing this 41 years. And every year for 41 years, there's some shitstorm going on somewhere for you as an artist on some level.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Even in the most successful, crazy fucking 90s years, 501 gene commercials and all that stuff, there was still crap going on.
Yeah.
Sometimes because some other people are being very successful doing something, and you're working in a corporate situation, there's a lot of downward pressure corporate on you to do stuff, right? So this guy over here sells enough comics that they can buy a house with the royalties. What the fuck are you gonna do? You need to be doing that. You need to be doing that. You need to be working on this book and making this book sell like that other book, because I fucking need my royalties, right?
So it all rolls downhill, right?
The black and white boom, the black and white but every year. I just going back, I was just thinking like even when I was first circling, trying to get trying to get a wave on the carrier, trying to taking my stuff around. They had the DC implosion right at the end of high school, right? So there literally has always been some, and then talking to any of the old timers, I'm an old timer now, but I was talking to the old timers. Comic books started shitting the bed in like 1952, right? Literally, the height of comic books, sales of comic books, floppies, was in the 40s, and by the early 50s they started to decline. And when the American the House Un-American Activities Committee got together and they skewered EC and all that, comic books started declining in sales dramatically, which is why a lot of the old guys in the 50s got out of comics and went into advertising. And people kind of forget that, right? And then young people don't even actually really know about that. But the height of comic books as a mass medium, as comic books, was in the 40s, and by the end of the war and in the 50s they started to decline. That's why Kirby ended up at Marvel, right? He was the guys who were left were trying to get into newspapers, right? Everybody wanted a newspaper strip because that meant money and security, right? So, we're kind of circling the drain. It's like you're on the edge of the black hole, right? And the comics has kind of been on the edge of the black hole for a long time. There was problems with distribution. There's a lot of problems that affect you that you have no control over, right? You as yourself as an artist can't affect that, but it certainly will affect you. But I was thinking, every year, then the computers came in, right?
I was going to talk about that. Yeah.
Right. There was the black and white boom and the black and white bust, and there was the image boom, and then sort of like the image bust. And then we had Friendly Franks in Capital City, which is when I was self-publishing for the first time. And when Capital City went out of business, my numbers were immediately halved, and they never returned. They never came back, because a zillion comic book stores at like Obi-Wan, you felt a great disturbance in the force. Like everybody went overnight. All these places went overnight. So,
something I haven't felt since.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's always been some negative thing to affect you. And in general, sales were falling, went up, and then did that, right? The 90s, right around 94, 95, because I remember getting my royalty statements, and I remember getting the circulation statements. And in the 90s was free fall, which is why I got out and went into animation when I got the opportunity to try doing that to sort of sidestep it. So there's and then now animation tanking. 80% of something like 80% of the people working in the union in animation are laid off. So there's always some crisis for you as an artist working in commercial art, whether you're an illustrator, an animator, cartoonist. There's these big giant things that can suddenly come overnight, and so 2025 it's not starting off great, but it's actually probably I was talking to a young guy today who had written me on my Instagram. The main difference now is that there are many people like Steve is a shining example of what I'm going to say. Doesn't rely upon a studio, or a corporation, and there's technology available that can allow you, if you can build an audience, to serve them in some direct manner that skips having to deal with Diamond or Disney or Warner Brothers or Comcast or whatever. I mean, but that's, I think, for me, that's the future. That's the future. That's the, that's the Mr. Spock figuring out the escape velocity around the black hole.
Well, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm glad that's where, I mean, it's the challenges. There are challenges ahead, even on the indie or the ultra indie side of just doing Kickstarters and webcomics and things like that. There was the things like there's a scandal with well, I don't want to leave the topic of self-care because there was Jamar, did you want to add to that before I start derailing us?
No, go ahead.
Well, part of thinking about self-care for a second, I have been trying to get more fit in the last year. I've been kind of blessed with some good health, and for a while, but it's not been because I've necessarily been. I'm just very low mileage. I'm a very low mileage vehicle. It's not because I've taken good care of it. But
there's still McDonald's wrappers in your back.
No, I've always had a pretty good self-control and that sort of thing. So, but last year has been doing karate and things like that to become more fit, and I think that's been helped. It'll be about a year in February that I've been doing that, and that feels good. It's regimented. What I like about karate is that it's gamified. You've got a belt system and things like that where, oh, ding, you level up and you get another belt, that sort of thing. So I feel like that stuff has been helpful for me to stay focused, because otherwise my mind will drift. Any excuse to, I can always spend more time at the art table. It's not like I'd be skipping the gym to go do something like fun. Right. I'd be doing more work or coming up with a new Kickstarter.
And now you have the added bonus of disarming punks out in the street.
No, I run away. I'm a coward. But in terms of self-care, there's that. There's taking more time, making sure I spend time in the evenings away from the computers and all that stuff. So this year has all been about taking better care of myself. And so last year's been that too. But think about the next year ahead. There's things like Honey is that plugin that you might have seen ton of YouTube videos about. It was a plugin that is basically stealing people's affiliate money. It's like, so if you had an affiliate, it's a plugin that was created, and it was the idea you're going to check out on a website, you'll get the discount code. Your browser will automatically offer you the best discount code. And so that's ostensibly what it was supposed to do, but it wasn't doing that honestly at a certain point, allegedly, according to the lawsuits that are being brought upon it. They wouldn't necessarily offer you the best deal. They would work with Macy's or whoever the vendor was, who had an affiliate link, and give them they would craft their own affiliate codes. They wouldn't give you the best affiliate codes, and at the very last second, best discount codes. At the very last second, they would swap out your affiliate links. So let's say we had an affiliate. Let's say we were sponsored by somebody. Mm-hmm. We would send people there, and the very last thing that browser extension would do was make sure that they got the cut and not us. And so they did that. There's lawsuits, but they're owned by PayPal. And so my worry is there's going to be a backlash against PayPal, and currently all my e-commerce on my websites via PayPal. I got to keep an eye on that. So the very first thing I was doing once that story broke was, okay, do I move to a different e-commerce solution like Stripe or something like that? So that's what, being your own system, you have to keep abreast of these things and how they might affect you. And so this year, so that might be an issue. Moving over to Blue Sky, I deleted my Twitter account because of the AI grab that site's doing. So there's things like that where, it's good not to be beholden to Diamond or to lose that cut of whatever money you'd make. But I still had designs on going to Diamond. I mean, in whatever form they might. We haven't said out loud. I don't know, maybe not. With the Diamond announcing their Chapter 11 bankruptcy restructuring, I still have hopes at some point to be able to get my stuff into comic shops, because I still feel like that's a wonderful audience. But I totally derailed. That was a tangent connected to a tangent connected to a tangent.
But they're all there. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. All these things are connected. and all these things come at you, and you're just sitting there doing your creative thing, right? And you go, okay, I'm going to use PayPal, or I'm going to use Etsy, or I'm going to use, there was a lot of people that were using Etsy. Then they had to get off of Etsy, and then it was like a very anti-Etsy thing. Yeah, well, shit, man, I'm sitting here all day and I'm trying to, make my little Christmas cards or what the fuck now? This other thing's, blowing up. And then the next thing,
trying to make my duck decoys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, there's always some shit going on. Always. It's like I posted this afternoon. It's like the tide of I always think it's like that scene in The Matrix where the Agent Smith takes over the other agents. It's like there's all these corporations who are now we're going to be bad. We're just going to flip. We're going to change our algorithm. I just did this thing now where Apple empowered Siri to learn from how you use your apps. And you have to now go into your programming and they didn't say, hey, Mike, by the way, Siri's going to learn from all your shit. That's okay, right? No. I learned because I see somebody else does it. And it's like every day, literally, somebody is being a dick. They were probably always a dick, but now they're just like, I feel very empowered. It's okay.
To be dickish.
Right? Yeah. And we all love Blue Sky right now, but I guarantee you the chances of them being like this in 2 or 3 years is probably almost zero, because every single one of these companies starts out, they reach a certain part, then we're gonna go public. Oh, I'm gonna get a board of directors. All the people on the board of directors are dicks who ran all these other companies that are full of dicks, and they will turn Blue Sky into
a bag of dicks.
Exactly.
That's how all social media systems have to work. They have to be. They have to grow their audience, and once they've grown their audience to the maximum size they have to be, the only way to extract more wealth is to start cannibalizing what they are, and it starts to feed and bleach things away, and it starts to turn terrible. So it's like Friendster, MySpace, Twitter. Yeah. They're all going to go. So we got to hop to the next one and gather rosebuds while we may, and then build your email list.
Well, Steve, our good buddy Billy Bob, what up, Billy Bob, asks, how's Blue Sky? I've seen a lot of people moving there. How do you guys feel about we just said, but beyond kind of where it's going to crash and burn at some point? That's very fatalistic. But how is it right now?
I think it's fine. I think it is like a young Twitter. It's another universe at the beginning of expansion, and I think it'll expand for a while before it collapses upon itself. I think it's good. I think it's, but it's also a thing where I've recalibrated. There's a time that I think a lot of us make a big mistake in judging us by the number of followers we have. That's the thing that we can invest a lot of our own self-worth in, and I think that's kind of a fool's errand. I would not. I'm going into Blue Sky with much less of that. I don't care how many people follow me. I'm not a person who goes on there and has to talk about, the day's events. I'll share artwork from time to time, but because a lot of people say, how is it? And they mean as a marketing tool. And when you mean, how is it as a marketing tool? That means it's not as a social network. It feels like either it's a thing for friendship, it's a thing for camaraderie and good vibes, or it's a thing to extract wealth from and build your audience. And, this is kind of this mercenary side, and there's this kind of, energizing, invigorating side. I prefer to use it the latter way. And if any new people discover my work from the nice things I post, that's great. But I'm trying not to view it as this kind of mechanism for, building my brand or any such stuff.
Well, the one thing I've been on there like a year now, I guess. It's probably pretty close to it. None of the sites are worth spending any money on advertising, because I used to do that.
Boosting and stuff like that. Yeah.
It doesn't pay because they choke the algorithm. No matter what, they're choking the algorithm, right? They're not actively letting it grow organically, right? So right now they're not doing it on Blue Sky, and what I've noticed is that. So I'm on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads. I don't go and post stuff on Threads. I just turned it on because it's on the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed is that my peer group is all on Facebook. I have conversations with people on Facebook. I do not have conversations with anybody on any of the other platforms. Now, it seems that writers I know that are on the other platforms do have conversation, but then you have to go part 1 of 17, because they only allow you.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that, to me, I don't like that. Right. But what I do notice is that I'm getting different set of eyeballs on my work on Blue Sky. And I realize that I'm different than most cartoonists because I do a lot. I'm interested in more than one kind of cartooning because some people just want to do gag cartooning or whatever. But I do a lot of things. I do comics, do different styles of comics. I do animation, and then I do fine art. So I look at it like I have like 3 audiences. There's people who just like Mike Manley. There's people who like Mike Manley on this thing, like Batman. You give a fuck about the Phantom or Judge Parker or Samurai Jack. They're 90s kids and they like this thing. And then you have people that are like fine art and they like my fine art stuff and like, oh, that's Batman. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what I noticed is that Meta started really screwing with the algorithm, right? And so it's weird. I will post painting on Blue Sky and get more people liking the painting than if I post a Batman. Now, if I put that same thing on Instagram, I will get way more people liking the comic. And they're like, oh, well, that's a nice tree, but
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're not using an algorithm, if you're not if you don't have all that stuff tweaking it, and it's kind of raw, or at least we are assuming that it's raw, we don't know, the reaction to my work is different on every single platform. Right? So I don't know whether other people are experiencing that. Most cartoonists don't do other stuff. They just do their thing, like you do your strip or whatever. I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm just saying I like to do a lot of different stuff. I've always liked doing different stuff. But what I do notice is that, like the Skull Kids, the people on Facebook love the Skull Kids. Some people on Twitter love the Skull Kids. It seemed like they liked them more. Now they like them less. If I do Batman, anything that's like Batman or a main Marvel character, especially if it's just an image, like a pinup, that gets the most traffic.
Sure.
Right? That gets the most traffic. Now I can put a nice page.
That doesn't translate the same, right?
Yeah, it's just like if you have just a single image of Batman, good, right? And so you sit there, and it's harder for younger artists because they go like, I'm doing all this work, I'm busting my ass, I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm getting nothing. I'm getting spit. I'm not getting anything. Nobody's looking at my stuff. Nobody's buying my stuff. I'm not getting any kicks. I got no followers, right?
No ham, no burger.
Right. And I know a lot of people. Some friends of mine were on Etsy, and then they got off of Etsy, and like now they're trying to find another place that's like Etsy, so they can have their wares, that they can put their stuff up. Because there's some people who actually made their living that way, right?
Oh, yeah.
They made their living that way.
Yeah.
So it's and then we didn't even talk about the next week the tariffs starting next week, the 25% tariffs on your art supplies, because everything comes from China, everything comes from outside of the United States. Printing, everything, the best deals are outside of the United States, right? So on top of the whole diamond kerfuffle and what's going to happen to small press people, well, are you going to be able to eat 25% more of a tariff on getting your boxes off the boat because it got printed in China? And what about your stuff that's already on the way or already in process?
There are so many challenges now shipping shipping out, and they
cost ROW, rest of world.
I know there's a number of publishers, serious publishers, who are just decided, well, we're not gonna. Their Kickstarters will be U.S., maybe Canada. That's it. They're not going to.
Canada's hard. Canada's hard, man.
But trying to ship to New Zealand, trying to ship to Australia. There's also a new law that went into place in December about when you are selling products in Europe that you have to have a European representative.
All right.
In case they have a problem. So a couple of people popped up saying, hey, we'll be your representative, because they don't expect anyone to ever call, but it's a stipulation that you have to have this thing. So, I mean, I don't know.
Scotland Yard showing up at your door.
How much am I willing to pay for a Kickstarter that has 200, has 400 backers, 500 backers, 11 of them are to Europe.
Right.
How much do I have to pay to handle those 11 people?
Well, you suck, Steve Conley, because you don't want to ship to
and already my books
Barbados.
cost if a book costs $25 and $25 to ship, most people don't want to pay the cost.
Right. Yeah, it's already expensive now.
Yeah.
To ship stuff overseas, like somebody will buy
$21. My discounted rate to get this to Europe is $21. That doesn't include the bubble wrap. It doesn't include the box. It doesn't include the printing. It doesn't. It's so expensive to ship. And
there it is.
Yes.
So
okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
So if you got your book, you got your Kickstarter, and somebody in Belgium orders that, then and that is $20. Then they basically have to spend $40 to get it.
Yeah, and they'll be hit with the VAT when they get it. They'll have customs when they get it. They have to go pay that part, because there's other things you can do to have the book, basically include the VAT and the cost. All of that is to say that. So if I charge them, let's say I charge them $20 let's keep everything simple. The book is $30, the shipping is $20. Let's say. I still have to charge them $22 for shipping because Kickstarter takes 10%. So I have to charge them extra for the shipping just for the amount that the credit card company Kickstarter is going to take off the top. So I have enough money left over to pay for the shipping. And that doesn't.
Right. You're coming out at a loss just by sending them the book. It's probably cheaper to send it for free.
Well, if it costs you $20, you're selling it for $20. What does it cost you to print it?
If I do print on demand, like if I just did one copy, let's say $13 to make that book.
Okay, but let's say you get 1,500 copies. What would it go down?
$10. If I haven't needed that quantity yet. At that point, I would have it printed overseas, and now we're running into whole other problems where the cost per book goes down, the cost to ship it to me goes up. So it's like the printers in China and other places can say, oh yeah, the book's gonna be. We can print you this book for $3 a copy, and it's going to cost you, a fortune to ship it over, and you'll get it sometime. You'll get it when you get it.
and as I learned from some people, when you get your stuff printed overseas, you also need to get insurance, because if you don't and the ship goes down or the books get damaged, you're like, oh, I just spent $25,000 to get my books printed and I got them and they're all full of seaweed and I can't sell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
ahead. And the print on demand is so iffy. Like, this is one of my recent copy. So page 1 is, I don't know what page that is in the story. There's no title page.
What happened?
I don't know. So the good news about print on demand is I then contact these guys and say, okay, you need to send me 6 new copies because you screwed up. And that's part of their math. They're like, we'll make them quickly. We'll send them. And if they don't ask within the return window, if they don't want replacements in the return window, they're stuck with them. So I don't even know what I would do with this.
Well, they put on your shelf. I have a bunch of those too, because that is a thing when you're doing print on demand and they should send you that crate. You better go through every one of the books.
100%.
Give them to people who suffer from dyslexia. See, then they
hold them up to the sunlight, because there was a whole shipment I got, and the matte laminate was still wet when the people were taking it off. I knew who did it too, because their thumbprint was perfect on the corner of every one of these books.
So let's say it's just a hellscape and you can't afford it. Do you know of printers in the United States that could do that?
Well, the printers who could do it at the quantities you're talking about. Well, I still think there's lots of print on demand companies who you can trust, and they will reprint things. But like Jamar said, you have to police it. The shipment comes in, you want to keep them in those boxes. It's nice and tidy, but you don't have that option. You have to open a box and go through the books and make sure one isn't damaged irreparably, or these things are artisanal. These things are made by a person. When you're getting print on demand, they're on a conveyor belt and people are slapping this chipboard into this sticker, which is basically the cover. And if that cover, that it would be real easy to make that sticker at a 2%, like a 2-degree angle, which means the tip on your spine is going to slide down, or it's going to wrap around the cover. And there's a margin where they'll go, you're stuck with it, because they're used to most people who buy novels not caring. But us in this space where everything we make is a collectible and has to be pristine and has to have a 9.8 grade. Yeah, exactly. You've had people come to your booths, I'm sure, who pick up the book and hold it to the light.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what this world we're in demands. And
I chased them with a broom.
And these printers aren't prepared for that. Like Random House found out with Marvel. Penguin Random House, they found out that, what do you mean these have to arrive in good condition?
So do you scout a printer here and get a sample to see, like, well, if this over here flames out and I can't do it, are there you've got to have a backup?
I'm stuck with these guys because they printed the first 2 volumes. And if I get a different printer to print volume 3, it'll feel different. The height will be different. Something will be off. And every person who bought volume 1 and volume 2 will put that volume 3 on the shelf next to it, and they'll hate me. Something will be off, and it needs to be consistent through volume 4.
What if they go out of business?
Then my readers will understand, and then I get to reprint the whole run because they'll want it to be consistent on the shelf or something like that. Yeah, if they go out of business, it's just one more heartache, or they don't make that particular matte varnish anymore.
All those things are part of running your own shop.
The fun.
It's so fun. It's fun, right? And then also it's funny when you talk about all this stuff. And I was talking to somebody off camera earlier today about how 98% of the populace could not care less about the things we're talking about. Yeah. And we kind of live in the red box generation now, where you go up to the box, you press entertainment, and entertainment comes out in the drawer. And you take it home.
Except the red boxes are gone.
Right? But I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I finally went to return it, and the red box the TARDIS is gone.
You still have it? You still have the CD?
I found out I did have an old Netflix CD that was like in between stuff that I never mine now for forever. But all this I think ties into my point is that every year that I've been working, there has been some worry or some crisis. Even now that we have the ability as artists to independently, away from any of these, look, net neutrality, we do not know how that's going to play out, where they're going to say, well, all this part of the internet, you want to reach them people in Japan, or you want to reach Europe, that's going to be a little bit more, it's going to be a little bit more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know how all these things are going to play out. And so as an independent artist, let's say you want to avoid, I don't want to give my idea to Disney. I don't want to even work for Disney. I want to do my own thing. Technology, this stuff allows us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, every year there's something that happens, or many things that happen, that cause you to suddenly have to really change your game. And you have to be Steve's like Scotty. He's like a combination of Scotty and Spock. He knows all this stuff. He's interested in it.
Spotty.
A lot of artists are not. A lot of artists go, I just want to draw my comic. I'm drawing my page, and I'm going to give you my page. Take it, Daddy. You make it work. Right? They don't want to know nothing about nothing. They barely can use their computer. Right? And there were generations of people who were able to do that. Right? Generations of cartoonists were literally able to just take a piece of paper and a pencil and draw. Here, got my check. See you next week. Right? Generations of artists will never be able to do that now, even if you are independent.
This is more old school than that. This is back to making your own pigments. This is back to you had to know how to make those pigments in order to do the painting. Nowadays it's like that HTML are those pigments. The code, the knowing that you're going to use Stripe and having a employer identification number, or having an accountant, and these things, they're all part of this craft of being able to do this. It's more old school than that kind of, we're going to have a select few people who are chosen who will be able to do this. The process you're talking about, Mike, is that's very slender window where a few specific people were able to do that. But before that, it was more like, okay, Wild West, you're going to survive with we joked about this, about being trapped on that planet with a Gorn, and you're going to can you make a rudimentary lathe?
Right. The young guy I was talking to earlier today is going to get an apprenticeship in I think a printer or something, and I said that's fantastic, because that's what I had when I was 15. I started working in a small
a sweatshop. Is that
in a small graphic artist? The guy who used to be an ex-art director at Chrysler. I worked for him. He ran his own shop. He had clients. I learned how to do, and because I had that commercial art, I had the vocational class. I learned how to do all the key lining and paste up and all that stuff. So I was able to take my portfolio, get a job at that guy's place, work with him, learn on the job, do all the camera stuff, pre-cam, all the pre-press stuff, press stuff, all the way up to delivering to the client. And I said, that skill set helped me so much in my life as a cartoonist, because I understood how things are made, how comics are made. And then when I self-published, I knew how to talk to a printer. I knew how to talk to the printer in 100%. The language that the printer uses, right? And a lot of cartoonists find out when they start self-publishing, even though it says 10-point cover and blah, 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 this and then a saddle stitch, and they don't really know what it is. And then they get their book and they go, well, that's not what I wanted. Right. That's not the paper I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's, So I told him that's something that's like golden. If you can get paid to work with somebody as an apprentice, that's the kind of stuff that will pay off for the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, that's really important. And a lot of artists are kind of lazy with that part. They're really good at being creative. They're really good at doing the cool art stuff, but all the other stuff that impacts whether your cool art stuff will actually get to your audience in the way that you want. They're a little shaky on that, you know.
Going back to the self-care thing for another moment, is I've been watching kind of like a nouveau hipster thing happening really slowly.
More beards? Are they getting like really lustrous beards?
So lustrous. Now I'm seeing more of like the resurgence of, remember how a couple of years ago everybody was like, oh man, I need a teleselect typewriter with a ribbon, like that hipster shit, right? Or, you know, I bought a record player and now I'm buying vinyl.
I need an abacus.
I'm counting fast like the old guy. I'm starting to see people who are trying to kind of like go back a couple of generations where now people are buying iPod classics and trying to like put new hard drives in it because there's no Wi-Fi. And this is a pure way to enjoy music without the, you know what I mean? And dumb phones and all of these things where people have been connected so long, they're looking to disconnect. Right. So I'm even seeing that with people who are doing stuff on the internet, like we talk about Instagram. And, you know, we used to say, Mike, you used to say it a lot, maybe even 5-6 years ago, get on the internet, put your stuff on Instagram, you know, you'll find an audience there. And now it's kind of like we're in an age of, we're content creators. We're not artists anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think there's something to be said about creating on your own timeline, not feeling you have to feed the algorithm with your content. Right. Just like, how is this art making you feel? Are you getting anything from it? And, you know, there's also different columns of that. If you're trying to like get known, get seen, get your strip out.
Oh, you're trying to make your living from it. See?
Right.
You're trying to make your living from it. That's the way I look at it. If you're doing it because you love to do it, that's really a whole different thing. Because that's what I say to the young artists that I was teaching. You can do this for the rest of your life because you love it. Right? And if that feeds you in a way that it's just pleasurable, you can do it because you love it. And I had a couple students who really struggled, were really having a hard time. And I said, you know, it's okay not to do this for a living. It's okay to do it just because you like it. Right? That's great. If you're trying to do it like I do it, then that creates a level of execution and all the things that go along with that becomes at times exceedingly difficult. Maybe because you're not good enough, maybe because your personality conflicts with someone telling you, make that purple. And you go, I hate purple. And that is exactly the wrong color. And you're not going to ruin my...
And in the webcomic world, it could just be because the property you're working on isn't the right one at the right time. There's something that you could do nowadays. You could do something this year, which will fall flat on its face. And you do it 5 years ago, it would have been great. 5 years from now, it would have been great. It's a timing thing as well. I did Astounding Space Thrills for quite a long time, and it did okay, but it reached its peak. It plateaued. It wasn't ever going to be enough to let me quit my day job. And then The Middle Age came out, and that was, whether it was because I was finally ready as a cartoonist or because it was the right thing at the right time. Who knows what the alchemy was that worked. And it wasn't because it was smarter than the Astounding Space Thrills, or it was because I loved it more than it. It was none of that. It was more like this clicked. And so sometimes that can be the case too, where it's not about your personality or about your level of professionalism. Those things are important for sure. Personality less so, but more. But in the internet domain, certainly it has an outsized value. But I think the middle age wouldn't have worked 20 years ago, but it's working now. I feel like that's a thing where I think knowing that at some point, one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is figuring out how to switch it up.
And every successful creator that you know did exactly what Steve did, which is you it's sort of like failing upwards, but over a period of time. And if you go, well, I got one idea and this is the only idea and people better love this idea, and they don't, and that crushes you. I mean, you can look at guys like Jack Kirby. How many ideas did he come up with? A zillion. How many crashed and burned? Everything in the 50s crashed and burned. Everything.
Right.
Everything he did in the 50s died. Right? Here's a guy who co-created Captain America, had his own company. Every single thing he did in the 50s died. His companies died. He was on the ropes.
Right.
And he was on the ropes so much that he went back to Stan Lee when they were on the ropes. Right? And then it worked out. Right? But all that, hundreds of pages, probably thousands of pages that he drew in the 50s, it all tanked. It all eventually tanked.
And in modern parlance, that would be posting it with no likes, posting it with no feedback, posting it with no shares. So he had to wait till he found the one that clicked.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a generation, maybe, of cartoonists who come along that will be like proof. You know what I mean? I mean, you want people to see your work. I don't think likes are important. What I think is important is connecting to an audience. So like if I did something like Darkhawk, you know, more people like Wolverine than like Darkhawk, right? If we're going to listen to about likes, right? But I think what happens is when you're young and your ego, yourself, your confidence is forming in this social media platform, people are very fragile and very sensitive, because it goes like, well, it started out everybody liking and thing was growing, and now it's like, oh, I do all this work and nobody likes it. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? I'm not getting any likes. They're throttling people's feeds. And that's a real concern. It's more of a concern for somebody at 22 than someone at 62, right? Because the person coming into the world of 22, likes is way more important. That is it's
currency.
Yeah. You know, and I know many. I read it all the time. I read it all the time. I read people getting burned out and being frustrated because of what the algorithm is doing to them, right? And my confidence in my personality and my relationship to my work was not monitored every fucking second of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then, you know, like when I turned in my work, the editor said, sometimes nothing, right? But you got your script and you're working on the next issue. It wasn't like this
pat on the back, smoothing you up, right?
Yeah. It was like, if you know, it wasn't not structured in the way that social media structures your feedback as an artist based upon, you know, this random collection. Like if Garcia Lopez gives me a compliment,
yeah,
ding, I gone to heaven, right? He's a person I admire. If one of my peers or one of my heroes admires me,
JAMAR Nicholas.
Jamar, if Jamar Nicholas likes something, I'm in a coma for a week. A coma. I can barely move. Jamar loves me. But I've seen it because I've been around young artists for a long time as a teacher and as a mentor. I've seen how you work really hard and you turn something out, and most of the time it's turned out for this, right? It's turned out for the internet. Right? When I was turning my stuff out, it was turning out stuff maybe I'd get in the fanzine, maybe not.
Right.
I was mostly turning it out for myself in hopes of having samples to show to a professional who would, give me a hand up. It's such a different world. That's why I was talking to that young guy today. I said, it's like there really is no way to compare the way I got in and the reactions to my work, because even this, you being able to talk to me so easily, didn't exist for me when I was your age, and all the good and the bad that goes with that, right? So I think 2025 is already proving to be probably another challenging year, and I'm sure 2026 something will happen. 2026 will, what's going to happen? Some kind of technological change, some kind of chip. I mean, AI, right? AI is winning right now. AI is winning. I always kind of figured it was probably going to win. So will there be a breaking point at which?
How do you know it's winning?
Because I see more of it every single day.
Yeah, it's replacing clip art. It's the thing is, you go to Adobe Stock now, and it's just showing you AI alongside the other.
Google. You turn on Google, it's like a bajillion.
Yeah, so a lot of people are concerned about YouTube being overrun with auto written scripts with auto narration and auto video. So there is a ton of that stuff that's going to pollute some of these systems, but they have to know that it's going to, in the end, it is not great. It's going to dilute.
Who decides that it's not great? The consumer or the artist?
No, the company. The company will go that this, like, at some point they have to realize this auto-generated detritus is clogging up their content hose, and like that high-value content is the only thing that really matters. And by its nature, the AI stuff is garbage. It's empty calories. It's
I know we say that. I know I hear that argument all the time. Yet it continues to grow.
But where does it grow? It's really popular among the fake AI people on Facebook.
Look, all I'm saying is, from what I see on my feed, and I'm a very anti-AI person, right? But I see stuff and I see AI stuff. I saw some film some guy did the other day. It's getting better. It's getting better. And I think the problem is, for me, the average person doesn't care.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But I think there. But the idea that saying it's winning is a declarative statement that I would question. I'm like saying, okay, anecdotally, you're seeing more of it, but I don't trust Facebook's algorithm as being a solid metric of reality.
Well, but it's the reality that people see. That's my point.
If what you're seeing is very different on Facebook than what I'm seeing, that I don't. Is it winning in that we know any cartoonists who are living off of it? Are we any cartoonists who or film studios who are releasing a full movie made out of AI and it's doing well and it's winning awards? Forget awards, filling their pockets with cash. Well, the only metric of success in the U.S. is how much money it made.
Right. Well, right? that's what matters to everybody.
Right.
Is it making money? When they talk about a movie, they don't talk about this great movie. The first sentence is, the new Pixar film made $1 billion.
Right.
not whether it was, fantastic, a new level of acting or performance or anything. It's like Frozen 7 made $50 billion, right? That's what they talk about. The reason I say that we're losing is also because artists as a whole, even the Art Directors Guild, is no longer advising people to try to do that as a living, because until someone big like Meta or Disney, somebody loses $100 million or $400 million or $1 billion in a lawsuit as a punishment or as a fallout of something to do with AI, it's making money. So therefore, slowly, it's winning.
Okay, well, I disagree, but you could also say somebody's going like, man, I can't believe all my cyber cafes are going out of business. What happened to my VHS stores? What happened to my vape shops? AI is the vape shop of art at the moment. And yeah, you might see it everywhere. Suddenly there's one on every corner. What's that about? I don't think that's necessarily a metric of long-term success, or even in any way. I've heard from cartoonists, illustrators in the fantasy gaming space, where that AI stuff is really the most, I think, perfectly poised to be sabotaging of young careers. I've written about this. It's particularly terrible because the budgets in the TTRPG, the gaming space, are so poor that they've always attracted young artists, and that's where a lot of young artists would cut their teeth, because this illustration pays $25, but $25 is a lot for a publisher who's only making a few dollars. So they go to AI and it turns out something that's fantastical looking and good enough. And so, but there are backlashes against that. People don't support it. It can't be allowed on certain platforms. Now, every platform, Drive-Thru RPG and others, you have to indicate whether it includes it or not. So even if the layperson can't tell, you can now sort by those things. You can say, don't show me anything with AI. Yes, they still have to actively select not to do that, but it is.
And a lot of people like it. A lot of people. I've unsubscribed from many art groups on Facebook because they all started getting taken over by people going, "Oh, I found this new Edward Hopper," and it's like, no, it's not. No, no, it is. It's the new Edward Hopper. I know. And it's like, no, it's not that. And artists don't have an effective lobbying the way other like unions, regular unions, the Boilermakers or the steam fitters, they have unions that are much more
stevedores.
There's more of them, so they have more money. Right, like the UAW. There's a lot more people working in the UAW than drawing comic books, right? Yep. So because of that, you're dealing with a numbers thing, which means that you have money to pay a lobbyist to work on K Street to lobby the congressman. And I was talking to people in the beginning because there was people were talking about getting a lobbyist, but there's just not enough artists, and not enough artists all in the same boat, right? So I think that's another complication, because younger people, that from my observation through social media, you have people like, no AI, but then there's like probably as many people like think it's cool because they can get what they want. They can use that to get what they want, right?
Yeah, and I get that. I'm not sure we're gonna. So that's your prediction is this year. What happens with AI? Well, we can review this in 12 months and see how it stands.
I think it will. I think the AI will advance further into. I also think that that's why you're not seeing a lot of stuff yet out of Hollywood, because they're really working on being able to use AI more and more and more. I mean, the animation union just ratified the contract, but from what I was reading in the contract, I don't see how that really protects anybody.
All right, go ahead, finish your thing, and I'll say something.
No, go ahead.
So, hey Nick, good to see you. So I've been real quiet just because of kind of like the week is catching up with me already. So I feel like AI is like this current era's bugaboo, right? This stuff's been around for a long time. Shit, when you called movie phone, there wasn't a real dude on the other end of the line telling you when
Yes, it was.
Ghostbusters 2 was playing at the Metroplex, right? It's like the shit has been around in forums for a long time. And I'm not discounting what it's doing to art and artists and all of those things. But I feel like just like when the era, when we talked about this, of clip art came out and you could go to Best Buy and get a CD with 5,000 images on it.
And guy doing golf.
Yeah, it came and went. Even when you could go to the Staples after you already got the clip art one and got one that showed you how to draw comic strip panels. And you can make comic books with this CD-ROM. Right? I think there's always going to be a need for real human stuff. And I understand the panic that this new shit brings on. And just like Nick said, with the idiots out there who, no disrespect to the idiots, like he says, you know, people like a new shiny. Like on Facebook, all of a sudden you can make your face look like a Renaissance painting. Like people just want to do that, and then it goes away. Like it always, the bloom always comes off the rose. And I think as long as, you know, we keep fighting against this stuff and telling people, no, this isn't what you want real shit, then I think it'll kind of finally subside. But I know right now, like the house is on fire. But we do this every time. We did this when the Macintosh showed up, or when when Photoshop happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? And things do change, like Mike's facsimile machine, he doesn't use anymore. But, you know, some things just have to subside for the next thing.
R.I.P. Facsimile machine.
You still have that thermal paper, Mike, that you
I did eventually. Not too long ago, I did throw out a couple of old rolls of
thermal paper.
Of thermal paper, yeah, because it just eventually yellowed. Whatever they put on it so that you would heat it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would just eventually the acids in it or whatever would consume itself. So you couldn't even just save it as a roll of paper to draw anything on, because it would be like it would be starting to eat its. And I should say that while I, you know, express those views, you do not go gently into the night. No.
I've never said that. I never said roll over.
But I do think where it's like bad timeline. Like where are you on the bad timeline? You know, you could be 20 on this particularly really bad part of the timeline, or you could be 60 and you already had bad timelines before, but not as bad as this. You know, we have these little points where everything converges, right? So my thing is I try to help young cartoonists, young artists realize that you can't control the timeline. All you can control is what you do about where you are on the timeline, right? Because the timeline is, you know, I can't as a guy who does 2 newspaper strips, it would have sure have been better to do those in the 50s.
Yeah, you'd have a golf cart in a mansion in Connecticut.
That's right. I'd be sitting here in a golf cart, right? It is not on the timeline. It is not the time to be doing a newspaper strip. Mm-hmm. Even the most successful newspaper strips today would have been way more successful years ago, because what's happening to the timeline of the newspaper business, right? So that doesn't mean that they don't launch new strips, and new strips come out that aren't good and are not successful. So all you can do is try to take all the information in and be aware. That's the other thing I advise this young guy I was talking to. So like, you got to look at the environment. You can't be, you know, you can't just be on your little on your front lawn. You got to look at, like, well, what is the environment for the kind of cartooning you want to do? In general, the big environment, right? Like, who are the publishers? How many are there? Are there a lot? Are there a few? Are the things that are successful? It's like, I have a friend who might be doing something that goes through Scholastic, which is great because Scholastic's doing really, really good. But if that same person did a graphic novel, well, depending upon the publisher you're going through, if you're going through the timeline for the direct market, doesn't look good. The timeline for comics that go outside of the direct market still looks good. So where are you in that? And where are you in that environment? And a lot of times, artists don't look at it that way. You don't look at it that way. When you look at the last century, the peak of illustration, the peak of cartooning, all the greatest people, the greats of the greats, existed because the environment existed that required that to be filled, right? So what is that? That environment does not exist now.
Yeah.
Right. That environment. That's why I try to look at things historically, right, and understand the timeline and your environment now, right? So, like, the environment to this young guy I'm talking to is nowhere near what the environment was when I was his age. That environment doesn't exist, right? So you have to adapt to your environment. If AI is coming in, PayPal turns out to be a dick, then you got to do Venmo. If Venmo turns out to be a dick, you got to keep moving. It sucks because you just want to sit down and draw your beautiful comic. You just want to draw your beautiful comic and share it with people. Yet I got to deal with all these assholes. Like, every day I'm dealing with assholes, right? Because that's our timeline.
But it comes with a free Frogurt. But the Frogurt is also cursed.
Right? Right? Like, when you were 17, Jamar, and you were wanting to do your comics, you weren't thinking about PayPal and social media and, you weren't thinking about all that stuff. You didn't even have to worry about it. It didn't exist.
Right. Because also the lamentations of a kid who wanted to be a cartoonist was just trying to be a cartoonist. And then all of this cold water hits you and knocks you off the bow of the boat if you're not careful.
And the other sailors laugh at you.
Right. I mean, and this is, I think, kind of like the crux of why we have this platform is everybody on this thing, between your expert cartoonist and all the guests we have on here, are like seasoned vets who have been surviving in this game for a long time. And from one side of that, you could say, from like being in the bleachers, you're very excited to go, oh, look at that guy. He's got a thing in the bookstore. He's got a thing on the stands. That's cool. I wish I could have that. But these kind of conversations we have tonight we're like, well, yeah, we're here and we're still dealing with bailing water out of the thing. Right. You know what I mean? So it's never all good. And I even said this a while ago. It's like everything, like Mike said, everything's always been to shit. Right? It's never not been to shit. So it's just, you have to figure out how to, like, don't step in it. You wipe your foot off and keep it moving.
Well, see, the thing is when you're 22 yet, maybe, or 32, you haven't experienced that thing yet. Right? So it was interesting to me to talk to a guy like Al Williamson and then really find out, because I would look back at that era and think, oh, all these great guys are all doing this stuff, And then it really occurred to me one day, a guy like Jack Kirby, who everybody calls the king of comics, and we all think that he's this genius, this amazing person. How many times did that guy fail? And basically, the 50s was all failure. It all got wiped away. All the companies he did, all the characters he did failed, right? And you don't ever think about that. You just think like, oh, he's the guy who created the Fantastic Four and Captain America. But you realize, like, that guy, I mean, Kubert, all those guys, they, it was looking rough. Al went and worked with John Prentice down in Mexico for a couple of years because things got so bad. Frazetta went and ghosted Lil Abner, right? So he could get a steady paycheck, right? It was a rough time. John Buscema got out of comics. He came back into comics. He got out of comics. He went into advertising. Lou Fine, a lot of people that were giants in comics in the 50s got out and went into advertising, right? They completely got out of comic books. So when you look at it historically, again, they're the timeline, there's peaks and valleys. And right now, I think there's a lot of things that can help you survive because of technology. If this had happened, if these things are happening and, tariffs and all this stuff was happening before laptops, or even in the beginning, there's no way people would have been able to survive it. You wouldn't be able to take a 25% hit on your printing, right? And you wouldn't have been able to go have a Patreon and a GoFundMe or all these other things would not have technologies. Even though everybody's always going to get a little bite, right? That's the other thing. Everyone is always going to try to get a bite of anything that you make. Anything that you make, anything that you put up, people are going to be trying to get a bite out of it. That's capitalism. Everybody, you're on the internet, you're getting a bite, right? You're putting your stuff out there, people are getting a bite. Whether the bite is an algorithm or an actual 2% fee for a transaction, everybody's going to get a bite, right? And maybe we will go, the 10-year-old now will grow a big thick beard, lustrous beard, and be a lumberjack cartoonist and live off the grid, and be like a farmers market cartooning, where you show up on Saturdays with your bushel of handmade comics that you trade for apples, and almond butter. You might have a blowback where people want simpler technology. I do know some young people who do want simpler technology.
Take it back, right?
Right, like you said. But people were doing that 20 years ago, going back and buying, when you had the guys that are doing all the Josh Wink and people like that, we were buying turntables and buying old records to do stuff, and that's old. That's old. So you get those little things that come around, like, we're bringing back Memorex, we're bringing back cassette tape.
Yeah,
we're bringing back
the Star-Lord Walkman with the orange pads on the ear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're even bringing back CDs, right? They're bringing, because most young people don't buy CDs.
I think we can sum all this up by saying the Frogurt is also cursed.
Hey, Mom, you got some? Get your Go-Gurt and your Sunny D.
I want the purple stuff.
Yeah, I want that drink.
Oh my God! So, guys, we're kind of running out of time here. I don't know if we got anything accomplished, but I think we got a really good conversation.
I think we started the year right.
Yeah, and again, I think maybe where we're at is that that there's always something going on, and the way any of this works is that you have to adapt. You really have to adapt, and if you're shouting at clouds or you're kicking a soup can down the street because something has changed, that's on you. You have to change with it. What do they say? Adapt or die, or something like that.
My whole career really is a series of adaptions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I had to adapt my goals. I had to adapt my idea of the golden period that I would have loved to work would have been, say, like 65 to 75, right? That's when I grew up. That's when I read all the stuff the first time. All my heroes were working. That's my golden aesthetic, is like right for comic books, is like right in there, right? But that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. And so my entire career, I adapted. I did jobs I didn't want to do, and I had to learn skills to do other jobs because I wanted to be an artist. And then I had to adapt to get the computer, and now I've adapted to working digitally, right? And I don't have to, but if I didn't, just for instance, with the strips, they want digital delivery. That's not something I can tell them. You don't take that way. You take it the way that I want to take it.
You take it the way they want you to give it.
Right.
Or you give it the way they want you to
draw
give
it
it.
all on paper, which I did. I still had to scan it. Still had to have a computer. Still had to learn Photoshop. Still had to do all the production on my end to give it to my client the way that they wanted. I cannot dictate to the client, right? So that's just part of the whole. You have to adapt as a commercial artist. As a fine artist, you don't. You can say, I still like to use dung and straw to build my little kiln, to make my things the old-fashioned way, like they did 5,000 years ago. Cool, man. That's
cool story, bro.
Right. That's your right. But as a commercial artist, you don't get to. You have to adapt or die. And the thing is that the world now is all adapting, right? The planet is adapting. It used to be, I think, that there were sort of pockets of adaptation, right? But every 20-year-old adapts the new technology. Every 15-year-old, everywhere that they can get that technology, is adapting it, right? And so you know, trying to be an outlier is difficult if you don't have someone who's going to support you, right? And that didn't really used to be the case, you know. But we're all the world is adapting in a way because of technology, right? So you start out at 8 years old on a laptop,
right?
Laptop,
or younger, right? Yeah,
right. And that's the same laptop using the same technology that George Lucas is using, right? Mm-hmm. You as a young kid are using Photoshop, the same technology that the top people who create use, that did not used to exist. This generation has the technology, the same technology, this powerful technology. I didn't have that, right? So I had to adapt to it, right? And it's different if you're born into it. It's just normal for you. So I my 2025 thing is adaptation. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to adapt whether you want to, you know, or whether you need to. You're just going to have to adapt. There's like no way around it, you know. And sometimes you think it will actually be worse than it is, you know. And once you do it, it's sort of like get over yourself and keep creating. That's the other thing. I had, you know, at times you have to get over yourself, right?
Yeah, that's like, I think we talked about that our solution to everything is keep drawing.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what the problem is, the solution is keep drawing.
Well, it's funny because our boy Paul Pate says we miss the good old days when we were just trying to learn to draw. Right? And you know, I mean, not to say that we veered on our subject matter, but it's kind of like I think this business aspect is almost, dare I say, more important than knowing how to draw at this point.
Well, that's like what I advise the young guy today.
Mm-hmm.
Take business, learn the environment, right? Because if you're trying to do it as a living, not as if you're trying to do it as a vocation,
not a hobby,
then you have to do the other part, right? If you're just doing it as a hobby, you're making your own comics on your own time because you just like making comics, or you like making paintings or sculptures or building models, whatever it is, your creative thing, right? Making your music, right? You're just making your own music. Great. Now, if you're trying to make music and get it out to people, well, that entails a whole other level of sophistication and a whole other enchilada. And if you don't want to embrace that, fine. But then you cannot expect to have the same return. You cannot expect to have the same result. Right. And I think that's, for some people, that's a conflict, because they want the same result, but they don't want to do the compromising and the getting over themselves and the adaptation that is required, right? Because part of the Hollywoodism of being an artist and of all this stuff is like, they idealize the struggle and then the magical moment of success, and it really only happens like that when you're watching a movie about an artist who's successful. They don't make a million movies about all the people that crashed and burned because they all couldn't get over themselves.
Yeah, this is funny. I've had like a little bit of a rush of like posts and stuff. Like I have some things coming up, and I just had this interview, and this guy in the interview, like in the preamble to it, says that I'm an overnight success. And I think he admitted it. Well, the next line was, but his overnight success took years and years of hard work to get to. I admired what he was trying to say, but I made that same noise when I read that. I'm just like, because that's the iceberg. That's what I always talk about, is the iceberg. Like, people just see the very tippy top, but there's so much failure underneath that gets us here. You know what I'm saying? So, I guess my resolution for this year is to stay alive. That's mine. Like, none of this. like I love the chat came alive when I said that. Right. So it's like, none of this matters if you're dead. Right. So you got to take care of yourself in the present. You have to go get a colonoscopy, like I did on the 31st of December.
Welcome to my world. You drove me to mine.
I did drive you to yours.
I need you to take me to mine, Jamar.
I'll take you to yours. I'll be your designated.
Very good. He has a special limo service for when you go get your colonoscopy. Soft pillows.
That's right.
Soft music.
We'll go get ramen. We'll get ramen afterwards. Yeah.
Eat some sipping juices.
Stay alive. I will find. So also you guys, if you look out your window and you see a naked guy like kneeling on the ground with electricity surging off of him, that means that we're almost out of time.
I thought you were saying a naked guy drinking some electrolytes.
No, that happens all the time in Philly. That's not shocking. So, Steve, what's your resolution, and we'll get out of here.
I think I know it's not the most popular thought. I think it's going to be a very good year. I'm optimistic about it. I know it's going to take a lot of work. My year has started off with an unbelievable amount of stuff to do. Yeah, and I'm excited for it.
That's good, though. That's good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hard year, a different, but I'm excited for it. I think this is. I'm old. I don't have a whole lot of years left. This has got to be a good one.
Wow, I'm older than you. Then I have even fewer years left.
Yeah, but that's how many years do we get? The next one's got to be a good one. We're due.
That's right. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was going to say that I try to look at it compared to what I've experienced previously in my life, which is what age gives you. It gives you the ability to compare things, right? So a lot of negative stuff there. But I went through negative stuff, a lot of really negative stuff when I was younger, growing up in Detroit. So I'm not panicked. Like a lot of people are like literally, I have some good friends, super depressed, very panicked. And I don't feel panicked. So I sort of feel like things are going to be bad. Maybe they'll be weirder bad than you think. But what are you going to do? You can't put your head down on the, you can't put your head down or give up, especially if you're an artist, right? If you make your living as an artist, if I give up, well, how am I going to buy groceries, right? I mean, literally some days, maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's like I need to make this $50 to pay my light bill. If that's what gets you through, whatever it is that gets you through, as long as you're not throttling, you're not hurting someone else, whatever you got to do to get through, get through this year, get through this week, get through tomorrow.
Get through the night. Yeah.
Get through tomorrow. Well, have little goals, right? Don't imagine, and it's really easy to imagine, which again, one of the reasons why I stopped watching the stupid people on TV. I'm imaginative enough. That's my job, is imagining things. I can very easily imagine the worst possible scenario. So what I found is I listen to a lot of music, listen to a lot of audiobooks, try to keep myself positive, try to eat good, try to exercise, should exercise even more. I'm not doing karate. I also remember when I was taking karate, my sensei said, if you can run in a fight, run. And he was, Mr. Black Belt. He said, if you can run, run. That's the smartest thing to do in a fight, right? So that's, try to prune your feed, your social media, friends, family, into an echo chamber of positive. I used to share a lot of art every day, a lot of art on all my platforms. All the stuff that I love that makes, I see something cool, I try to share it with people. I try to listen to good music. I listen to some interesting podcasts, a lot of audiobooks. I'm not ignoring the world, but when I'm working, I want to be positive. So, your environment should be positive if you're an artistic person, because I believe that if the fear vibration is turned up too much, no one is positive. And you can't be positive. That means that you can't be creative. You can't produce work. I don't know anyone who produces quality work if they're afraid, or they're fearful, or they're negative, So that's what I've done for myself as I've adjusted my feed. So I listen to a lot of I get a lot of benefit out of my Spotify. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I also have a Audible, and I listen to a lot of music and a lot of really cool podcasts on soundtracks and stuff that I love. So that's my advice: is try to surround yourself with positive people, not ignoring things, but keep yourself pumped up.
Not perked up, right?
Well, you can be perky. Some people are naturally perky.
What you meant, like perky? That does perk. All right, guys.
To a Slim Jim.
Guys, we went to the limit. We entered the danger zone. I love it. So guys, we're going to get out of here. We have a very special guest next week. Next week we have I think he's going to get a master's jacket soon.
He gets plus masters, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's been on here a couple of times. The very lovable Mike Hawthorne is going to be on next week. Mike Hawthorne is a friend of the show, one of my best buds, and what a mega talent. He just finished up a run on Batman. Yes, the Batman. And just kind of finished kickstarting one of his creator-owned properties. I'm very excited to talk to him about it and see what else is going on. What else is going on with him? And also, you may know that Hawthorne and I have another podcast that we do on our Patreon. So I think you're going to be in for a big treat. And before we get out of here, Mike, what up? Bonjour, Christophe. Christophe wants to see your shirt, Mike. So you got to do this. You got to do the Zoom. There you go. Hooja brothers. I love it. All right, that's enough.
I think you might be able to see the pilot or something on YouTube of Red Basket.
Yeah, because it was going to be a cartoon, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. See, so many of them talk about crests, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what 2000, like 99 when that was
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy crap! All right, that's enough, guys. Guys, I hope you wake up tomorrow, and
I hope you wake up tomorrow.
I hope you wake up tomorrow. But when you do, I concur for you to make sure you wash those curvy hands. Nice. All right, guys, we're getting out of here. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.